Paragraph 10 talks about the appraised value. There are two choices. Please pick one. The first one is a box to check if the contract is contingent upon the appraisal. The second one is a box to check if the contract is not contingent upon the appraisal. If neither box is checked, it's going to not be dependent on an appraisal. So if the property comes back much lower than the purchase price, then too bad, so sad. You're going to have buyer, you're going to have to figure out a way to come up with the extra funds. Okay. So the appraised value, the lender's going to order the appraisal. When it comes back, if it is lower than the purchase price, the buyer has 5 days to tell the seller and the brokers, tell everybody actually. And at that point, the seller can say, I will lower the price to the purchase price, and everybody's happy and we go to closing. Okay. If the seller doesn't agree to lower the purchase price, then the buyer can decide either they're going to go to closing and they'll make up the difference themselves, or they're going to terminate the contract by delivering a notice of termination to the seller. If the property is not contingent upon the appraisal, then if it comes back for less, then the buyer still has to come up with that cash and close. He or she does not get out of the contract for that reason. The lender's going to use their appraisal, of course, appraiser, sorry, not appraisal, but their appraisal too, to make sure of third hand, nobody participating in this to write up a higher price or not. Sellers, let me give you a tip here. If you get a contract in, especially if there's a multiple offer situation, you get a contract that comes in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over asking price. You may jump up and down and say, this is wonderful, I'm going to get more money, I'm going to get more money. Well, if there's an appraisal contingency, if that box is checked, that appraisal is going to come in, and if you know what your house is worth, and your realtor's done a good job in pricing your house, it's going to come in, that appraisal, we won't appraise, that appraisal will be lower, and at that point, you have to make a decision of whether or not you're going to lower that purchase price. So it may be a way for one buyer to get you to accept their offer and hoping it'll appraise, but if it doesn't, then it'll be reduced if it's based on that appraisal. There are times when the appraisal may not come in. Maybe it's a rising market. Maybe the comps or the comparable sales in the area haven't caught up to what's going on in that market. It's very hot. Everybody wants that particular property, so maybe it won't appraise. And at that point, you're going to need to decide whether or not, buyer, you're willing to come up with those extra funds.